The sound of bare feet slapping against hot pavement echoed through the quiet desert highway. "Please!" the girl screamed, tears streaking down her dusty face. "They're chasing me!" Drivers passing by glanced at her and kept going. Some looked away. Others locked their doors. The girl couldn't have been older than 13. Her long dark hair whipped wildly behind her as she ran, stumbling across the cracked road under the blazing afternoon sun somewhere outside a small Texas town. Her knees were scraped bloody. One shoe was missing. Fear lived in her eyes like something alive. Then the motorcycles appeared. 6 massive bikers thundered down the highway, leather jackets flapping in the wind, engines roaring loud enough to shake windows. Tattoos covered their arms. Heavy chains hung from their belts. To most people, they looked terrifying. The girl froze. Her breathing stopped, because behind her in the distance, an old black pickup truck suddenly appeared around the bend, and it was coming fast. The girl backed away in panic, looking between the truck and the bikers. She had nowhere left to run. The lead biker slowed his motorcycle and removed his sunglasses. His beard was gray, his face rough from years of hard living, but his eyes softened the second he saw her trembling. "Hey," he said gently, "who's chasing you?" The girl tried to speak, but only broken sobs came out. The truck got closer. The biker turned his head once toward the road behind her, and his expression changed instantly. Protective, sharp, dangerously calm. He raised one hand. Every biker beside him stopped immediately. Without a word, the 6 motorcycles spread across the highway, completely blocking the road. The pickup truck screeched to a halt 20 feet away. Dust exploded into the air. A heavy-set man jumped out of the driver's seat, furious. "Move out of the way," he shouted. "That's my daughter." The girl violently shook her head. "No, don't let him take me back." The bikers didn't move. The gray-bearded biker stepped off his motorcycle slowly. "Funny thing," he said calmly. "A scared child says otherwise." The man's face darkened. "Mind your own business." The biker folded his arms. "This became my business the second she asked for help." For a moment, nobody moved. Cars began stopping behind the motorcycles. Curious strangers stepped out, sensing tension thick in the air. The girl clung to the biker's arm, shaking uncontrollably. Then, in a voice so small it barely existed, she whispered, "He's not my dad." Silence fell over the highway. The man panicked for half a second, just long enough for everyone to notice. "She's lying," he snapped. "She's a runaway foster kid. I'm bringing her back." But the girl buried her face against the biker's jacket. "Please don't let him take me." Something in her voice broke open a wound inside the older biker. Because 15 years earlier, his own daughter had begged strangers for help, and nobody stopped. Not one person. She disappeared for 3 days before police found her alone, terrified and permanently scarred by what happened. The biker had never forgiven himself for not protecting her. And now, standing on that highway, staring at this terrified child, it felt like God had handed him a second chance. The gray-bearded biker pulled out his phone. "I already called the police," he said. The man by the truck lunged forward angrily. "You idiot!" Immediately, 3 bikers stepped between him and the girl. The air changed instantly. Cold, final. The man stopped. Minutes later, police sirens echoed in the distance. The girl collapsed to the ground crying. One of the bikers, a giant man covered in tattoos of skulls and flames, quietly removed his leather vest and wrapped it around her shoulders like a blanket. Another handed her a bottle of water. A third sat beside her on the pavement, talking softly about motorcycles, weather, and cheeseburgers, anything to keep her calm. To passing strangers, it looked unbelievable. Men the world often judged as dangerous were protecting a frightened child more gently than anyone else had all day. When police arrived, the truth surfaced quickly. The man wasn't her father. He was the boyfriend of a woman connected to a trafficking operation crossing state lines. The girl had escaped from a rundown house nearly 10 miles away after overhearing terrifying conversations about being moved again. The officers arrested the man immediately. As they dragged him toward the patrol car, he glared at the bikers. "You think you're heroes?" He spat. The gray-bearded biker looked him dead in the eye. "No," he answered quietly. "Just humans who stopped." The words hit everyone standing there harder than shouting ever could. Because it was true. The real miracle wasn't strength. It wasn't motorcycles. It wasn't intimidation. It was simply that someone finally chose to care. The girl's name was Elena. Over the next few hours, while social workers and police handled paperwork, The bikers stayed nearby. Elena refused to let go of the older biker's hand. At sunset, she finally looked up at him and asked softly, "Why did you help me?" The man swallowed hard, because for years he had carried guilt like chains around his soul. He crouched beside her carefully. "Because once upon a time," he said, "someone I loved needed strangers to stop for her." Elena stared at him quietly. Then she wrapped her arms around his neck. And the old biker, the massive man everyone feared at first glance, broke down crying in the middle of the highway. The other bikers looked away respectfully. Weeks later, the story spread across local news stations. People called the bikers heroes, but they rejected the title every time. One interview clip went viral online after the reporter asked the gray-bearded biker what lesson people should learn from the experience. He paused for a long moment before answering. "Everybody thinks evil wins because bad people are powerful," he said. "That's not true. Evil wins because good people keep driving past suffering, hoping someone else will stop." Millions watched the clip. Teachers shared it in classrooms. Parents discussed it at dinner tables. And across the country, people began telling one another about the terrifying-looking bikers who became angels on a dusty Texas highway. As for Elena, she was eventually placed with a safe foster family. But before leaving town, she asked for one last thing. She wanted a photograph with the bikers. In the picture, she stood, barefoot in the center, smiling for the first time in years, surrounded by giant leather-clad men trying awkwardly not to cry. The gray-bearded biker kept that photo folded inside his wallet afterward, not because it reminded him of pain, but because it reminded him of hope, of redemption, of the incredible power of one human being choosing not to look away. And somewhere tonight, perhaps on another lonely road, another frightened voice may cry out for help. The world changes forever when even one person decides to stop and listen.